Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is the Piracy Show, and we are now re-recording the Piracy Show because, well, circumstances changed. I guess you could say that today's ATV was a bit of a surprise. A brand new ship coming May the 11th, which we will get into on tomorrow's show, no doubt. But also in ATV was an interesting portion about the Hurricane. Now, the Hurricane is probably one of the more elusive, I would say, ships in the Star Citizen lineup. It's one of the more nebulous, one of the more difficult to define ships in the Star Citizen universe. Is it a dogfighter? Is it just a heavy-duty Alpha Striker? CIG used the term glass hammer in ATV. Perhaps glass cannon, but what I would like to do is talk about the fact that CIG seems to have kind of reframed the Hammerhead with the recent ATV, and they're describing it as now a ship with a turret that kind of picks a line, and it uses that to kind of disable and damage much larger ships as kind of an anti-capital ship. Now, the viability of the Hurricane's turret has always been the biggest question mark about the ship. Immediately, people were asking, can I slave that turret to the pilot's control? Can I at least lock those guns forward-facing and then fire them from the front of the ship? Do I need to have someone in the turret? How good is it going to be in a dogfight? And as we've seen with ships like the Cutlass, having that turret up there in a dogfight really isn't all that much of an asset when the person controlling the turret has to compensate for not only the movement of the target, but the movement of the ship that they're attached to. And that can be a very difficult proposition. There were a lot of concerns when the Hammerhead first came out, and that kind of led to Chris Roberts openly saying, you know, we are going to be taking a second look at turret mechanics, because one of the big comments regarding the ship was, how viable is that turret? Well, it seems that CIG is now presenting it as not so much an anti-fighter weapon, but more of an anti-capital ship weapon. And there are a lot of pros to that approach. There's a lot of real possibilities when you look at that ship within that kind of framework. If you think about that turret, it would be good. You know, recently we were talking about the Caterpillar, and we were talking about pursuing other ships, especially once ships go to full afterburn, as they're accelerating away from you. An ordinary fighter with fixed guns can run into some serious issues trying to bring those guns to bear on that larger target, because as you know, with the physics in this game, once you get up to afterburning speeds and you try to turn your ship can then slide. And then you kind of have the effect from the opposing gunner's point of view of more or less hanging in space or moving very, very slowly whilst your ship tries to correct itself onto a new course. It has to overcome its initial momentum from the direction it was originally headed in. Now, the Hurricane with that turret can kind of combat that to a certain degree. It's still vulnerable to those same physics, but it can now bring a turret to bear on its target while it's kind of drawing its line. And that's not to say that the ship can't move itself vertically at the very least, or horizontally to a certain degree with its directional thrusters, and not mitigate some of those problems that it may encounter trying to overcome the momentum. Now, as the engagement speeds up, let's presume that your target is moving away from you, and after burning away, trying to escape. The options your maneuverability offer you become drastically decreased, and of course you're going to be dealing probably with a heavier ship, and a ship that's probably a lot stronger defensively than you are. But that's kind of where those Wolfpack tactics that CIG mentioned came in. You know, it's now you have multiple ships all working at the same goal, and that does present some interesting possibilities. As a singular ship, I think there's still a question mark over it, but as part of an organized unit now, it does present some possibilities, especially with it kind of being reframed within this context, because originally it was this gives the dogfighting pilot a heavy firepower, low hit point or low survivability option, whereas now as an anti-capital ship it does present some interesting possibilities, especially if you think about it as a Wolfpack and not a singular unit. I think that in the end, when you look at the Hammerhead, no matter really how you try to frame the discussion, this fighter still has a question mark hanging over it. It still suffers from a bit of a core issue, which is how far is CIG going to let us take this ship? Because once again, that's a lot of firepower to have on a singular fighter. And if that ends up being an amount of firepower that's dominant, it's likely to be adjusted downwards. And then how good would that ship be with less firepower? It's kind of a weird balance where it's kind of sitting on a knife edge where you can kind of see, wow, this thing could be totally overpowered and amazing, or this thing could be complete garbage. And it's kind of stuck in between those two extremes, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that one shakes out, because this has always been a fighter that a lot of people have looked at and said, you know, there are some interesting possibilities here. There are some interesting places and interesting things that we can do with this fighter, interesting places we can take it, but there are some lingering doubts, and there are some lingering questions that as of yet I don't think are adequately resolved, and probably won't be until we've had the ship and flown it for quite a while and taken it through a few revisions. Now, I did take particular note of the fact that, you know, they were talking about the cockpit view and talking about how it was clean and there was no art for art's sake. You know, it was very much minimalist and giving the pilot a very clear field of view. And, you know, it's not like we ever talk about that on this channel ever. But that was really nice to hear. But I'm always kind of stuck when I look at the Hammerhead. I'm always stuck in the same place where I'm kind of seeing the possibilities, but I'm also seeing the drawbacks, and I'm still on the fence. You know, I really am on the fence, and I'm kind of looking at it. I'm thinking, well, you know, if they deliver it 3.2 June-ish, maybe flip a ship and try it out for a while and see what it's like. I mean, could it be an effective pirate fighter? Possibly. Depends on the target that you're attacking. I mean, against a freelancer, definitely I can see some real possibilities there, but against a much more substantial target, like a real capital ship, I kind of don't see it. I mean, in the end, you're still dealing with a fighter with even weak shields compared to other fighters, against a capital ship that is going to be probably, if it's even remotely intelligent, moving along at a fair clip, and therefore a little bit more difficult for the pilot to evade and still keep the turret gunner on track. And that ship's going to have a heck of a lot more shields than you. So even after discussing the Hurricane so many times on this channel, I still find myself conflicted. I still find myself looking at it and thinking, you know, I can definitely see the possibilities with it, but there's still some lingering doubt and questions. And it very much is a fighter that seems that if it's going to fall, it's going to go all one way or all the other. Either it's going to be completely awesome or completely garbo. And I can't really decide which way it's going to flip, and it's probably going to take a lot of testing to see. But I am, you know, the way they were talking about it, and definitely when I was seeing the cockpit view, I think I am willing to just melt something real quick and take it out for a spin and see what it can do. Explore a few options and a few possibilities. Now, of course, as an anti-capital ship, though, I really have problems seeing that. I really, really do. I mean, the bigger you get, the better the gun coverage is, and that's a heck of a huge difference in shield strength. I really don't know. Well, that's the show for today. And of course, tomorrow we'll be talking about the Starlifter and Moabs and all the goodness. I mean, look, we've been talking about this since last summer. We knew something like this was coming. It's here. What do we think? We'll talk about it tomorrow. So, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and I hope you enjoyed the show.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in the Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.